This is episode number 28, featuring artist Brenda Boylan. Welcome to the PleinAir Podcast from PleinAir Magazine. I'm your host, Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine. In the PleinAir Podcast, we dig deeply into the world of outdoor painting, referred to as plein air painting. For those of you who don't know that, it's a French term which essentially means outside. So these are people who paint outside. The French pronounce it plein air, others pronounce it plein air, but no matter what you pronounce it like, it's a huge movement of artists around the world going outdoors to paint. And the show is all about the movement, the painters, the collectors, the galleries, and the art. This week's podcast is brought to you by the world's largest gathering of plein air outdoor painters in the world. It's called the PleinAir Convention. It's huge. It's coming up this April in San Diego, and it's going to be the biggest and best yet because of San Diego. You can learn more at PleinAirConvention.com. It is my desire to see more people fall in love with plein air painting. You can help by sharing this podcast with your friends on social media or email, and I hope you'll subscribe. Just go to iTunes and look up PleinAir Podcast, and then hit the subscribe button. That way it'll come to you every week, and of course we'd love for you to go to iTunes and leave a comment about how you feel about the show. And if you have feedback or interview requests, reach me, Eric at PleinAirMagazine.com. This week's interview is also brought to you by Fall Color Week. This is the last week to register. It is a painting week at the peak season of unbelievable fall color leaves in Acadia National Park. All painting, no show, just play. And it's great. You're going to meet a lot of friends. It's limited to 100 people. We've got a couple seats left. And so just look it up, fallcolorweek.com. Now, let's get to our interview with Brenda Boylan. Well, we have Brenda Boylan on the line. Brenda, you're where? Portland?
Portland, Oregon, yes.
Hey, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun. I got to know you, we got to know each other originally, I think, at the PleinAir Convention a few years ago. I think that's probably where we first met.
Yeah, that was the very first convention you had. Yeah, it was great.
We got to see you in action in Miami right before our trip to Cuba.
Yeah, my chaotic start. But there's no drama. There's no more dramas.
No drama. Well, fortunately, I was in Tampa with a half of the group that flew out of Tampa, and the other half flew out of Miami. But Brenda had a particular medicine that she forgot to bring with her, and it's critical to her, basically, survival. So I think Brenda and Laura on our team were running around going from drugstore to drugstore about midnight trying to find it. You ultimately found it, I think.
Yeah. That was trying to. Oh God, it was so challenging, and going into Cuba with having to worry about, I'm diabetic. I have to have my insulin, and I left it back home in the refrigerator. I can't believe I did that, but we had to get the prescription sent over to Miami and then go to a particular pharmacy, and we drove around Miami a little bit because... Well,
you got to see Miami. Think of it that way. You got to do a lot of driving. I'm sure you needed to do that, so.
Yeah, we got a little bit lost. You might have to edit that little hiccup there in my voice. We got a little bit lost, and we got a flat tire.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, we got a flat tire, but Laura, is that her name? My memory's so bad. She was so calm and collected, and she got us back, and she was there. It was like, no problem. I know this. I know how to get us where you need to go. We'll take care of you. And she was so reassuring. And but we did what we could do, and then I ended up having to go remotely on injections with my medicine. So, but because I typically use an insulin pump for my health, and so, if you ever see me out anywhere, I have this little thing clipped to my waistband, and it's my pump. It keeps me alive.
So if we see you shooting up, you're not doing heroin, is that right?
Nope. I'm on survival mode.
Well, Brenda, I thought it would be kind of fun to have a little discussion with you just about you kind of live in a couple of different worlds when it comes to painting. You're both a pastel artist and also an oil artist. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's interesting to me anyway because I'm kind of a one-horse kind of guy. I'm an oil painter, and I don't know. I think the idea of trying to figure out how to master more than one thing is really exciting, but certainly challenging. How did this all come about?
Well, when I was a kid, I think it all started about when I was pretty young. We had a lot of different materials to play with in terms of crayons and paper mache and clay and Play-Doh and whatever. I'm thinking like when I was a really little kid. And so being exposed to a lot of different mediums, I had a hands-on thing. And when I was about 11 years old, 10 years old, we had a neighbor that was an oil painter. And I thought he was so famous. And I would go over to his little studio just next door and see his work. And he introduced me to oil painting. And I'd go over there for like little mini lessons and things. And I really wanted to get into art, but it wasn't something that my family could render me doing in terms of making a stable paycheck, mainly because I need to have medical for my health and all that.
So you've been a diabetic since a child?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was 8 years old. So almost 50 years dating myself.
You know what they say, if you can't get a date, you can always date yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I certainly did. But anyway, so I went and I studied graphic design at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and it was a degree. I had no idea what I was getting into. All I knew is that it was a career, a means to an end. But going through the coursework, we had plaster, clay, woodworking, not woodworking, but sculpture through plaster, oil painting, watercolor, acrylic, and illustration. And I loved the illustration classes. But we also had to learn design and marketing and advertising, illustration for advertising. And I really loved that aspect of that degree. But I wasn't completely fulfilled when I went into the corporate life. And so I continued to paint, and it was always oil painting. And once the kids were born, we adopted both our children. Once we had the kids, I was introduced to pastels as a very quick medium. And
because you didn't have time because you had kids.
And I was afraid of the paint getting smeared or a child smelling the fumes or, the residual of oil painting in the house. Yeah,
but dust was okay, right? Dust was okay?
Well, yeah, I know everyone always asks me that too. It's like, yeah, it's definitely dusty stuff. But I have a HEPA filter I have in my studio. And, but back then I didn't know what the heck I was getting into. All I knew is that I loved the results. I love the luminosity, the color of pastels. And people think pastels are chalk, and they also think pastels are like, eggshell blue and pink and violet and, light, dusty colors. But no, they are vivid pigments rolled up with a little bit of binder.
Well, do you use oil pastels?
No, soft chalk pastel. They're called soft pastel, and most pastelists work with the soft pastel. Oil pastel is like oil paint with wax. Yeah, different type of application. It's more opaque, and I can't say opaque, but you can layer the chalk pastel where you have layers of color coming through.
Oil pastel's more greasy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's probably why the wax is probably because of that.
Yeah.
All right. So I posted something recently about some really tough experiences I had as a childhood, in my childhood, which really discouraged me from getting into art. And you were one of the people who responded and said you had some pretty similar but different experiences. You willing to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, a
Or
little
is it
bit.
too painful to talk about?
It's not too painful. I have a really interesting background. My father and mother had divorced when I was about right before I became diabetic. So I was about 8, and and the courts gave my sister and I to my mother, and the challenge was that my mother was dealing with schizophrenia, bipolar, and dementia.
Oh
And
my.
here, yeah, and life was a daily struggle. There was so much chaos or unknown every day. What was going to happen? If she was going to freak out. Um, we had times where there was very little food in the house, and I don't know how I got my syringes and insulin. I must have been through welfare or something. I don't know what, but we were very, very poor. And I always wanted something better for myself than what I was living in. And I've worked very hard to overcome that. Part of that transition was when I left. I had planned, my dad had always asked me, come live with us. It's so much better here. And he had remarried and my stepmother, and he kept on asking my sister and I to come live with him. But I was afraid. I was afraid to go. It was a different world in their household, and it got to the point where I just couldn't tolerate living with my mother anymore. So I took a day out and I left the house. My closest friend at the time, she and her dad drove me to the airport. I had cash in my sock. That was in the day when you could walk up to the airport window and buy a ticket on call with cash as a 14-year-old child. Got on the plane, arrived in San Jose, and there was my dad and stepmom. And we went right to the courts, and they got, temporary custody of me. And yeah, that was a tough time. But
Wow.
transitioning into that family, there was challenges then too, because we had a blended family, and it wasn't all that easy. But I knew I didn't want to live at home for long.
So you left your sister there to deal with it on her own, right?
No, she moved out from my mother's lifestyle a couple years prior than I did. So I kind of followed in her shoes. So we were both there with my dad, but it wasn't really a healthy situation there either. But, we've worked things out, and everything's really great now. That everybody's happy with, over there now. I love them very much.
So do you ever wonder that you might have got some of that DNA and that you're going to go crazy?
Well, I often wonder why I'm not, but I'm...
Well, maybe you actually, the rest of us think you are.
I don't, yeah, maybe. Well, I question that and I go, God, I'm so lucky I'm not like that. I'm so lucky. I don't know how I missed that gene, but I certainly got the diabetic gene. So, I'm...
So that's a pretty interesting story. Now let's put that into a perspective of art, because that's what we're here to talk about. And so how did that impact you? Did that drive you away from it or towards it? Was it getting with in your new household with your dad and your stepmom? What gave you the freedom or the opportunity?
It was my respite. It was what kept me sane. I was always drawing or painting, but not like feverishly, and I had no lessons or anything really formal lessons in drawing or painting. I was very self-taught.
So this neighbor that you had, was he in the new house or the old house?
The old house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But I was drawing long before I met him. Long before he came into my life. But when I moved on to San Jose, I signed up right away. I was a freshman in high school at that point, and I signed up right away for art classes. And I took art for 4 years, and I just loved it. It was like where I could go and get away from, it's kind of like I always tell people when I'm out painting, I'm solving the world's problems right now. Because you escape into another level of consciousness. It just does that for me. So I love it.
You can't think about anything else when you're painting, can you?
No, only except what's the next color I'm going to put down.
Yeah, but so it's essentially it really is for you. It's a total escape. You have the ability to lose whatever stress happens to be going on in your life at the moment.
Yeah, there's how it is when you paint. There's just this whole nother level of consciousness or calmness, or even though it's probably the most frustrating thing we'll ever do is
well, it's using a different part of your brain. And I remember one time, I don't remember what it was. I'm not one to get very upset, but there was something that just got me totally upset, and I was wringing my hands all the time, and I was like, I could feel the tension in my shoulders and in my chest, and it was like, I got to get rid of this. And I went out and I started painting, and it all just went away.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't think about anything else.
Yeah. But then again too, sometimes when you are painting, you kind of like, I don't know how the word is serotonin kicks in or something. But
that's the fumes, the turpentine.
Yeah. The pastel dust.
Pastel dust, that's right. Which is kind of like pixie dust if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see the inside of your lungs.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one artist who I love her work. Her name's Kitty Wallace, and
sounds like a country singer.
No, she's very well known in the artist community for pastelas, and she developed a paper that I absolutely love using. And anyway, I asked her once, how can you roll those pastels and not feel like you're coughing all the time? And she swears she didn't have any problem with it, and I still kind of question that even for my own self. And yeah, who knows? But some part of it in me says, it was worth it. I mean, I've overcome. If I die happy, at least I'll die happy. From painting.
Well, I think we're going to get a call from all the pastel manufacturers. They're going to say, "Stop spreading rumors."
Yeah, I know. I'm good at that.
So, do you do any oil painting anymore?
Oh gosh, yeah. I was out yesterday painting. I posted a piece that I did yesterday at a marshland here in Oregon, and it was the first day of fall, and I didn't even realize the first day of fall, but I did a completely fall painting of these cattails that are starting to shed their fuzziness on them, and I'm headed down to Laguna PleinAir Invitational in a week or two here from now, and I'm bringing both mediums. I'm bringing both pastel and oil.
Wow, that's interesting. So, when did you first start going outdoors to paint?
2006.
And what prompted it?
There was a small little group in Portland. It's now called Alla Prima Group. And my friends Celeste Bergen and Kitty Wallace and a few others were going to go painting outside, plein air. And I heard them talking about this plein air thing, and I thought, well, what the heck? I'm going to try that. I can pack all my stuff. Took me 2 trips to get my gear out to my location. Now it's like all on my back. Now it's all, made into a smaller batch. But it was fun, and I still have that piece.
So how much do you do now? How much studio versus plein air?
The summer months, because I live in Oregon, the winters are colder and wetter. So pretty much the summer months, I would say whenever, maybe even in February, if we have a sunny day, I'll go out. And it's great too if you have, someone else to come along with you and enjoy the outdoors. But mostly the summer months, I'll be out painting. And, but also I have the kids at home, so I kind of have to juggle that.
Yeah. What age are your kids?
I have a 15-year-old teenage boy and my daughter who's 20, she'll be 22 here pretty soon. But she's on her own. She's here at home this year, last year school.
Well, I think it's interesting because I see you at a lot of events. It seems like you're doing a lot of plein air events and shows and other things. And how do you juggle all that when you've got a family?
Oh my God, it's like juggling bowling balls. Yeah. My husband, Joe, you met Joe when we went to Cuba, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, Joe...
What a great guy.
Oh, he's awesome. He's where I am today because of him. I give him a lot of credit. We try and work it out where either he can take time off from work if I go, or maybe my folks will come and hang out with Cody while I am away. But Laguna, I'm not sure how we're going to figure that one out because Joe works, full time.
Well, I'll come in and babysit. That'll be no problem.
Yeah, hey, I could ship him your way if you want.
Yeah, except it's going on right at the same time I'm at Fall Color Week, so I'm not sure.
We'll ship him there off to Fall Color with you, okay?
Yeah, well, that's all right. We'll teach him to paint. You've probably already done that.
I asked him. I think he's got talent, but he just doesn't sit down. He's all over the place. He's got a lot of energy, but certainly not going to sit down and paint. But he can draw. I know he can.
So what I'd like to get into a little bit, we've got a lot of people who are listening to this. I think we're well over 48,000 people now listening. And there are a lot of people that I'm hearing from who are new to painting. There are people who have actually discovered plein air for the first time because they stumbled into the podcast. And there are people who are curious about, how to become painters or, what the next steps are, what they should do for painting. So you do some teaching, you do some workshops. Maybe you can kind of touch on some principles that might be helpful to people to understand that would be valuable to them, whether they're new or whether they're seasoned pros. What are the things that you think are really critically important to understand or to focus on?
Well, first of all, I think good drawing skills are the basis of any good painting. And also, I think that if they can get a grip on what values are, that would be a huge plus in the right direction.
So let's take each of those individually.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had recommendations for people when it came to drawing skills, because I think a lot of people are intimidated by that. Clearly, it's important. If you could tell somebody like what's the best case scenario, the best thing they could do, or what's an acceptable thing they can do so they can really improve those drawing skills. Well,
I think there's a lot of different ways of doing that, of getting good drawing skills, but I would encourage them to maybe take a drawing course or 2 or 3 or 4. Definitely carry around a sketchbook with themselves. Whenever possible, instead of turning on their iPhone and checking Facebook, they can get out their sketchbook and start sketching something real quick.
Hey, that's a great idea for a new site, Sketchbook.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you you got one more thing to take care of there, Eric. But I think the drawing skills and values are real important. Anybody else would say that too in terms of an artist, a professional artist. And color theory, studying color theory, which is an endless subject and impossible to master unless you're like Sorolla or Sargent.
So you still struggle with it?
Oh, gosh, yeah. And I'm constantly trying to make sure that I have good composition. Right now, I'm studying mostly with my work. I've been working on the past 6 months on color harmony. And
well, let's touch on that because I studied for a lot of years just painting, and during those years, nobody ever brought up color harmony. I think maybe somebody said put purple next to yellow, but that was about it. And so what's the key to learning it, and what do you think are the principles that would be helpful to people to understand?
what's the key to learning it?
In theory, anyway.
In theory? Well, I think that if a piece looks like it all belongs to itself, not one area sticks out like a sore thumb, and everything is it's one whole painting. The color comes together, and it's usually the first thing people react to is the color. And I don't know, does that answer your question, Eric?
Well, it answers my question, but how do you get there?
How do we get there? For me, I've been trying to make sure that I have one particular color in mind, and I have that somewhere within the painting everywhere. So if I'm oil painting and I put a little dab, say it's a really muted day, and well, I'm going to use the same pile of mud, or all my colors mixed together in one pile, and it's a pile of mud is what I call it. I'll put a dab of that into every color area that I need, that I'm mixing on my palette. Or say, for instance, I want to have a yellow bit in my painting, or a yellow theme to my painting. I'll put a little bit of that very same yellow in every part of the paint pile that gets onto the painting. So there's yellow in there, or blue, or whatever. And I'm trying that right now, and I'm thinking that that's working. But also, too, like in terms of pastel, I'll do an overall underpainting of one color, and I'm underpainting on sanded paper. And so the pastel goes over that lightly, like a feather, and the underpainting peeks through. And it creates a wonderful color harmony all together. Everything relates to each other because it has one particular color in there. So consistently.
So the key to that is using complementary colors or not?
No, you can have it be local color, or, like, say, for instance, you're in a room that's got a lot of blue in it. So why don't you put a blue underpainting and then put other colors on top of that?
So when you first set out to do a painting and you stand in front of the scene, do you consciously say, this is going to be a primarily warm scene using warm colors, or this is going to be primarily cool, or this is going to be, yellow dominant or green dominant or purple dominant or something like that, or is it just kind of happen?
I would say I do that, and other times I just react, and there's no way to explain that. Sometimes I'll say, this, okay, say when we were in Monterey for the PleinAir Convention, and it was so blue there, but it was this clear blue. But do I put a blue underpainting? Maybe I want to put an orange one, which would be a complement, or yellow or whatever, which would be a wonderful complement underneath that. Or I could put a purple. Sometimes it's just where I'm at in my head mood-wise. Sometimes I want to make it exciting, and I'll put a complementary color. If I want it to be tonal, then I'll put a mud color or a gray underneath, and it peeks through.
So what is the key to making a painting feel comfortable? And the reason I ask that is because I'm finding, as I become more sophisticated in my own painting, that it's the most colorful paintings I do sometimes actually don't have a lot of color at all.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And honestly, I don't know what the key is per se. I think it's a lifelong quest. But I notice in works that I admire or that just blow my mind are when there are a lot of muted neutrals and then one intense color where maybe the focal point is, or some intense color just sings. I don't know. That part to me is exciting, and trying to figure out how that all works. I think studying other artists' work and looking at how they do that, and and trying to solve that without getting into that artist's mind. And, maybe you just study it by looking at it in books or online or whatever. But, Eric, I don't know what the key is. It's this quest that I've been on, how to get that color harmony and how to make something to stick out. What makes it sing? I don't know. Some people can really do it. And it's like, they must have learned that in art school. I went to design school.
So who do you really admire? What painters would be your muse? And let's maybe start with dead painters.
Oh my gosh. You know who one of my favorite painters is Monet, or I also love Vermeer's work. I've always loved his work. But why did he only paint 34 pieces?
Well, there are theories that he didn't even paint 34 because there was an imposter, a man who did I think he did several fraudulent paintings, and they were attributed to Vermeer. And before he died, he said that there are 8 paintings that he did that have not yet been confirmed as frauds, and they're in major museums, but he wouldn't say which ones.
Oh no!
So there may only be 19.
Well, then I'll take him off my list then.
Yeah. Well, I suppose maybe one of the reasons is because he probably spent about 5 years on each painting.
Yeah, it's like 5 years. What were you doing?
Well, they didn't have the modern conveniences we have now. So
I was going to say maybe he was juggling bowling balls like me. Yeah, I don't know. I would say Monet. I mean, it seems like, kind of trite to say Monet. Everybody loves Monet. But I don't know. I just have always, as a kid, I saw his work. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It just took me away.
Well, usually it's interesting because not very many people say Monet. And, I've done a lot of these interviews now and I've talked to a lot of people. And you usually hear the Sargent, Zorn, Sorolla kind of thing. And what's always fun for me is discovering new artists that I've never learned about because somebody has discovered somebody that's very cool.
Yeah.
And so I don't really hear Monet too much, and very rarely do I hear Vermeer. I do respect both very highly.
Yeah.
Have you actually painted over at the Giverny in the gardens?
No. Hey, I would love to.
All right. I guess I better do a Giverny trip, huh?
Yeah, but make it a small group, not 100.
Well, yeah, I learned my lesson from Cuba, so I'm taking 50 to New Zealand instead of 100 to Cuba.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Wish you luck and have a great time there. Yeah, I love Monet because I would call it, well, I guess broken color, and that's always exciting to me. Is how the colors interact with each other. And when I'm teaching, most instructors will say a color really doesn't have a color until it's placed next to another color. So how he has all those colors in there, and they're just dabs of paint that are dabbed in there, and that time of Impressionism, how he saw light. I just love that work. I just have always loved his work.
Would you ask if you had a chance to sit down with him for dinner and ask him a couple of questions, anything that is mysterious to you that you haven't figured out?
I would ask him how he painted in a white jacket. I mean, I get my paint all over me.
You see, it's interesting. You look at these photos of the artists back in the day, and they're all wearing suits. And
I know.
And I think I figured it out. I think first off, photography was very new, and so and nobody had cameras. They had to have professionals set up and come with cameras. And so I have a hunch what the suits were all about. Is it was just they were posing. Because photography was so special. And so I wonder if these guys were really running around wearing suits all the time. Maybe they were. That would be a good question to ask a historian
That's a great observation. I think you're right on with that.
Yeah.
You're
Because
probably
I bet Monet had some T-shirts, and let's see what saying would be on Monet's T-shirt.
I don't know. No.
Well, this is going downhill rapidly, isn't it?
I know. I tend to do that.
So maybe you did get that gene.
Yeah. Probably somewhere in there, very deep.
So what is it that gets you excited about painting? What subject matter is really turning you on?
Everything. I like doing urban stuff, though. I like painting urban work. It's challenging. I see a lot of urban things that are so different than what you'd expect, and it's very challenging. And I'm not going to do something that's easy. I'm always wanting to do something that's going to stretch me.
Yeah.
And kind of like hanging yourself, But it's fun. It's fun to try to do it in an urban scene, but the challenges that go along with it are usually, the onlookers and the sounds of the traffic, the noise. But if you can get through all that and understand perspective, it's a lot of fun.
I've often thought that a workshop, a great workshop, would be to say meet behind the dumpsters at the mall. And you set up and you say, okay, turn in any direction and find something and make a painting beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, how to make something just so ordinary into something extraordinary.
Absolutely.
That's what I think is kind of cool about doing urban work. And I also do that stuff when I'm in the studio in the winter months as well. And yeah.
So when you're in the studio, are you doing paintings from studies that you've done outdoors? Are you using photographs? What's your thing?
Both, definitely. Yeah. Like this summer, I was working on a very large piece. I brought my easel. I work in a studio at home. I have my own spot here at home. And I wanted to work on a larger piece, and I put my easel out in the backyard, set up a table with my oils, and I painted this larger piece from a photo that I had done. I had done a pastel of it, and then I loved how that pastel turned out. It was from a study, and I took that outside, and I did it outside in the backyard. But that was the first time I've done that's not my first time, where I've recreated a piece that I've done from another piece. But there's been other pieces that I've recreated in the studio from PleinAir. And yeah, it's kind of what we do. I use them as studies, and sometimes I sell them just as is, the PleinAir work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you had a magic wand, you probably do have one actually, but if you were to pull out your magic wand and you could make any changes in the art world today, what changes would you make?
I'll get my wand out and I'll polish it up, and I'm going to point it in that direction towards those who want to collect, who don't have the money that they could collect.
Oh, that's a nice thought.
So that people can enjoy more art. There's so many folks that will email me. I wish I could buy one of your pieces. I'll have to save up. And my heart breaks for them because, I've been to shows where, one piece just sings to you and moves you, and you want to have that piece, and you stagger and you delay and you hem and haw, and you go back, and then it's gone.
Yeah. Or you can't afford it.
Yeah. And it's like I'd be missing out on something that can take me away for the rest of my life. If I needed to look at some piece of art that spoke to me, because they do.
So I'll tell you the opposite story.
Okay.
I know this isn't supposed to be about me, but so we have a local restaurant that we go to frequently, and it's a little Mexican restaurant, and it's like all Mexican restaurants, filled with awful colorful, overly garish Mexican stuff, right?
Excuse me.
Pottery sunshine on the wall and, all that nonsense. But this restaurant has this one really good painting, and it's big. It's like 5 feet, 6 feet tall, and it sits over a table. And when I saw that painting, the first reaction is it looked like it was a Sargent painting. I mean, it was that beautiful.
Wow.
I mean, it's not quite that beautiful, but really well done. And obviously, it probably an artist in Mexico who just was really a good painter. Mm-hmm. And I said to the owner one time, I said, if you ever decide you want to sell that painting, oh no, I would never sell it. And paid too much money for it and so on. So my son and I went to go to dinner the other night, and he said, I want to go to that restaurant. So we went there, and it was closed. And there was a sign on the door that said, content auction tomorrow at noon. Oh, so I went back there the following day to see if that painting was in there, and it was. And so I went to the ATM machine because it was a cash thing, and I thought, well, I'll go up to like $500, right? So because I didn't want to overspend, but it was a really beautiful painting. And it's really big. I don't have a place for it. And auction started, and guess how much I paid for it?
$500?
$20.
Oh my God! Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Right, because everybody that was there for the liquidation was to buy the tables and the booths and the pans, the pots and pans, and the refrigerator and all that stuff. Nobody cared about the.
Put it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Where am I going to put it? I don't know where I'm not. At least I have it.
Yeah. So anyway, I brought it home, and Lori said, "I love that. It's going in the living room." So hey.
Awesome. Right on, Lori.
The only problem is it smells like chips.
Well, you need a big dish of salsa next to it now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I digress. Anyway, yeah. So your career has really taken off, and you've become quite popular. And is there something that you consciously did to kind of start marketing yourself and building your career? Because it seems like it's going very well.
Well, I don't know if it was consciously. I feel that I'm really blessed, and I just keep on working. And every year I write my goals down. I have maybe 4 or 5 goals.
See, there is tricks and magic behind this.
But they can't be far-reaching goals. They are goals that I can attain. And with each goal, I'm specific in how I write it down, and I offer steps to get there. And I don't look at it till the end of the year, which is really a shame. I should look at it frequently.
Look at it at least once a week.
But yeah, but the funny thing is, it's stacked behind all my other to-do things on my clipboard. But at the end of the year, I'll look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened. Oh my gosh, that happened.
Well, just the act, right? The act of doing it is, I teach this in my art marketing boot camp series, and just the act of setting goals and then trying to break them into little pieces, that is supplanted in the back of your mind somewhere. Now, it is better. I think it's better to be able to look at them, but the fact that you're achieving them, I think that's really critical.
Yeah, thanks.
Well,
and I just think partly too is when opportunity and preparedness meet, you have success.
Well, there's probably no such thing as luck, really. I mean, maybe a little bit, but usually luck is somebody is prepared and ready to take advantage of an opportunity when it occurs. And you have to be able to spot it. And if you're paying attention, you will spot it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not at all what you think. So what do you think is the definition of a great painting?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I think that's different for everybody. For me, if it makes my heart sing, I would think... if I get excited about it, to me would be the definition. Because I would think everyone's definition would be different.
So let's twist that a little bit and ask you what you think your definition is of a great painter.
Of a great painter?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know a lot of great painters. You're a
Oh
great
my
painter
gosh.
yourself, but do you see any patterns that the people who are really exceptional, do you see things that they're doing that maybe other people aren't doing?
I would think having the ultimate commitment to their craft, to their art, and making smart decisions and practicing nonstop. I would think that would make what a great painter is, or at least in my opinion. I would think it'd be different for each artist. I also think that some artists are so gifted that it doesn't seem like they have to work as hard, but perhaps they have to in some other area of their life. It's different for each person, I would think.
Yeah. Well, I've met a lot of gifted artists, and most of them have said that, they struggle all the time. So they appear to be gifted, but they still struggle.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like your definition saying that they practice all the time. I think that's absolutely correct. And it's interesting to me to find that the ones who are the very, very best, they're always studying with somebody else. I was on the phone the other day with John Coleman, the great Western artist, and he was telling me he took somebody's workshop recently, and I thought, do you need to do this? And yeah, you do, absolutely. But I mean, here's a guy who's been painting for literally for 60 years, and still he's going to workshops, and I think that really says a lot about a painter.
It does, and I think that's why I love the PleinAir Convention, because you can get all different sorts of artists that you admire, and they're all there. The hard part is choosing which one to go see, because two really good ones might be at the same time.
Hey, so do me a favor, because obviously when I say something, it's me trying to sell it, but I have a hard time sometimes communicating to somebody who's never actually physically been to this thing what the vibe is like. Can you articulate it?
Oh, the vibe. It's like a big, gigantic artist family. And like you are meeting up with lost aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters you haven't met or haven't seen in a long time. And everybody is there for one specific reason, and that is about their art and getting better. And there's such an energy about it. And for me, I love being around people. If you're not a people person, then it'd be more challenging for that person. But I think it's a great place to connect and network and learn. And there's so many good instructors that come up on stage for that. And I mean, you can pay your way to go to it and come home with one really golden nugget. It's so worth it. But some others, may not like it. It's, it's different for each person. But I think that even taking a workshop for myself is, why would I close myself up to more education? I'm not going to know everything. Why not open up and pick something new up,
I've had experiences, because I try to attend as many of the sessions as I possibly can, because why not, right? And although it gets a little busy sometimes and it's a little hard sometimes, but I find that sometimes there are puzzle pieces that come together by watching 5 different people who give you each their own little piece. And suddenly you have that voila moment where you go, oh, if you take what this person said and that person said and then twist it with what this person said, all of a sudden you have like these revelations, and none of them were, intended to be put together. It's just that they all kind of, I don't know. I think it's so stimulating for my brain to walk in there. And you're right. I mean, I walked away last year after the Matt Smith workshop. That alone was worth the time, because I picked up so many things. That was the pre-convention workshop that I came home and I started knocking out paintings, and all of a sudden they were coming alive, and I thought, I'm not so sure I even consciously was thinking about it. It was just like something that he implanted. And the year before that, I had the same experience with C.W. Mundy. And so, Kwang Ho is doing the pre-convention workshop this year. So I think it's, some of it is on a conscious level and some of it's on a subconscious level. When you hear, you're watching 50, 60, 70, 80 different people talking about art and sometimes showing slides and doing demonstrations. It
can be overwhelming, though.
Yeah,
like I remember my first time there, it was so much information. It was wonderful. However, at a given point, and this was the first year, and I'd never been anything like it before. I wasn't sure which direction I needed to follow because each instructor had their own special way of explaining something or concept that they were teaching, and so I was kind of like thinking, I'm a little confused of where I'm going, and I'm a little overwhelmed. And then, of course, the second and third time, I knew that was going to happen, but just to look for the golden nuggets and come away. Now, I think that you guys, now that you're putting together those pre-conference workshops, I'm really looking forward to going to the Kwang Ho. I've never been to the pre-workshops before, so I'm really looking forward to that. But it can be overwhelming to newcomers, and I've heard that from a few. But I always tell them, just give it time. Just give it time.
Well, what we started doing a couple of years ago is we started doing this Newcomers Orientation, and that helps a lot because we pair people up with other people. Because a lot of people don't want to come by themselves. They think they might not know anybody, and they might not. And so we put people together in small groups, so like 4 or 5 people, and we say go to lunch and dinner together, and the friendships develop as a result of that.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
The best story of all is that one couple ended up falling in love and getting married.
Yeah, you're a matchmaker, huh, Eric?
Yeah. So
great.
You never know. Well, listen, this has been wonderful. Let me ask you a couple of really, really heavy questions. What are you most struggling with in terms of your painting?
What am I most struggling with? I would think it would be my confidence.
Confidence, really? You seem to be very confident.
Well, I think it's an internal thing, and that usually comes with my painting. If I haven't been painting enough, I start to feel like, wow, can I get that good again? And it's not confidence. I would think would be self-doubt.
So is that the equivalent of a piano player who isn't playing piano every day? Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
All right.
I struggle with that quite a bit. And it could be a matter of timing stuff that's going on around the house, or just projects you have to, like commissions, or not commissions, but projects that you have to get through before you can get on to the next thing.
All right.
I'm very task oriented, and some things stumble me up, and I can't wait to be done with that so I can get on back to the easel. And this summer's been a tough one. I haven't gone out that much to paint, which really kills me because we're headed into the cooler months now here, and I'm like, okay, back in the studio again.
All right, next question. Best advice for a beginning painter? And you can't use the one you talked about earlier.
Best advice for a beginning painter? Jump in.
Jump in.
Don't be too careful. Just let go and make it happen. It's fun. Have fun with it. Play with it. Experiment with it. Make a mess.
That's great advice.
Yeah, don't strive for perfection. I would think that would probably be it.
Yeah, don't fall in love with what you're doing. Just have fun doing it.
Yeah, just have fun doing it, and remember not to strive for perfection.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the big one.
Uh-oh. What?
Okay, so it's your final day on Earth. Everything that you've ever created, every painting you've ever created, no longer exists. It's disappeared. There's no record of any of that. You've got your friends and family gathered around you you're about to take your final breath, and you are allowed to write down or pass along 3 truths in your life that you want to share with others.
3 truths?
Yeah. They can be about anything. They don't have to be about painting. They can be about painting. They can be about life. 3 truths. What would they be?
Oh, it might sound trite, but I would say live, love, and laugh. Live fully and love blindly and laugh heartily, often.
Perfect. Brenda, thank you so much for your time today.
You are so welcome, Eric.
Thanks again to Brenda Boylan. It is sponsored by the PleinAir Convention held this April in San Diego with some of the most amazing artists on stage teaching you the most amazing techniques that they've learned. Whether you're a beginner, very early stage beginner, we even have a basics course available for you, or you are an experienced pro. This is an incredible event. It's the largest gathering of plein air artists in history. It gets bigger every year. We're probably going to exceed 1,000 people. We're already 85% sold out. Hard to believe this early in advance. And San Diego is probably the reason. It's going to sell out. You want to get your seats. And people are coming in from all over the world for this. We go outdoors and paint every day. We've got 4 stages with big screens. Got stages for oil, watercolor, pastel, urban sketching. And you just want to be there. It's a giant expo hall with goodies, art supplies, and teaching every day. Big party. We're going to do the whole San Diego surf and safari thing. It's going to be lots of fun. More fun than ever, and it's always fun. You can learn more at the PleinAirConvention.com. It's also sponsored by Fall Color Week, which is coming up very, very soon next week. If you're the kind of person who can drop everything, you want to go paint a solid week and just have a blast meeting new friends. There's 100 of us. We're going to gather in Acadia National Park. We actually take over the Schoodic Institute inside the park. We all have our own little apartments and usually another person in the apartment with you. We serve you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We paint together all day. We go all over the area and park and paint in the park. The fall color is incredible. We have these incredible scenes with lobster boats and mountains and crashing waves and beautiful color. There's just nothing like it. It's no workshop, no stars. We're all equals there, and it's a blast. And so we have a few seats left, a very unusual, but we do have some. It's very unusual, so we should get you to grab one of them. If there should be at the time you're hearing this, should be a couple left anyway. You can find out more by going to fallcolorweek.com. Again, it's coming up right away, but it's a blast. Well, the plein air movement is red hot. It's probably the reason why PleinAir Magazine is the top-selling art magazine nationwide at Barnes & Noble in the representational category. Drop by, pick one up, get a bi-monthly subscription of your own, half the price of the newsstand at PleinAirMagazine.com. I always have fun doing this. I'm an old radio guy. What can I tell you? It's fun for me. Let's do it again sometime. Hopefully next week. We will see you then. I am Eric Rhoads, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine. Remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We'll see you. Bye-bye.